Welcome to ANDOR, the podcast where every week we analyze and scrutinize the Star Wars series ANDOR, 7 minutes at a time. I'm Alex Wallenetz.
And I'm Rastine Honardust.
And we have friends everywhere, and today we are joined by our friend, writer, and creative executive, Kelsey Goldberg. Hi, Kelsey.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Kelsey, can you tell us a bit about your history with Star Wars and how did you come to find the show ANDOR?
Sure. So apologies in advance to everyone listening. I am not generally the biggest Star Wars fan. My dad showed me the first 3 movies when I was a kid. I thought they were cool. He won tickets at an elementary school fundraiser to take me to an early screening to one of the Hayden Christensen movies.
Oh, okay.
And I loved it. And he was like, this is just bad cinema and bad storytelling, and we will not encourage this. And then I kind of just fell off it and never really got back in. I'm obviously like a human in society in the English-speaking world, so most of my friends are huge Star Wars fans, but it just did become such a big franchise. It got hard to like get back into, and then like in college, a lot of my guy friends, it was the like, oh, you like Star Wars? Tell me this. And I was like, no, actually, I just don't.
Name 5 wars.
Right. And yeah, exactly. It was like that kind of vibes, and I was like, or I could just not try to like this. But then it might have been you, Wallenetz. Someone described ANDOR as battles of Algiers in space. Mm-hmm. And so this is the first Star Wars thing I have watched or followed since I was like 10.
My new ANDOR pitch is think about how embarrassing it is for my dating life to have a co-host of Star Wars podcast. That's how good ANDOR is that I'm willing to do that. Yes.
Yeah. No, and honestly, it's of all of what, like, it's good. Like, I'm glad to be back.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I haven't dipped my toes into any of the others, but like, I'm glad to be here.
I'd love to take one step back and like, what was it about that Hayden Christensen Star Wars that you loved? And did your dad like bully you into not liking it? Or did you just want like, your dad didn't like it, so you're like, well, he must be right, and you just listened to him?
Okay, I need everyone to keep in mind that I was a little girl who was hyper and loved cute, hyper, goofy things. Mm-hmm. I loved Jar Jar Binks.
I think people have come around. I think people accept him now.
People have come back around on Jar Jar.
I thought like this is, I mean, because he just functioned like, I mean, now it is Disney, but he just functioned like Bartok the Bat in the Anastasia movie, or like like Flounder in The Little Mermaid. Like, he was the cute animal sidekick, and I was obsessed. And my dad was like,
Bartok has much worse politics than
yes, he does.
But did Bartok dissolve the Senate and hand over power to the Emperor?
He basically, if he could have, he would have.
He ends up helping kill Rasputin at the end of the movie.
Right, because Rasputin is the one who took down the
Oh, right. Yes, that's a good point. Sorry, I forgot. I'm not supposed to root for the stupid princess in that movie. Yeah.
No, they made a thing where like they took down the Romanovs, but also it was but the guy who was the friend of the Romanovs. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, yes. No, it does not. But I also liked that movie as a kid because my politics weren't formed yet because I was a literal child.
It's also very funny that now Anastasia is a Disney princess.
It is. And Hank Azaria's voice for Bartok, the like, I'll give her a ya and the hi-ya and I'll kick her, sir. Like, who's not gonna love that? But yeah, I really liked Jar Jar Binks, and I think my dad was like, this kid is hyper and talkative enough without having a character she can imitate running around. Like, I don't need her running around my house saying me, sir, Jar Jar.
You're gonna get in a lot of trouble doing
like,
that out in public.
Yeah, like the Olsen twins is all I can take. We can't add more annoying things to your cinematic repertoire.
It's funny you say that, though, because like there's a documentary about Industrial Light and Magic, and they did a whole season about like the prequels and everything.
Yeah,
and and there's like the guy who was like in charge of like animating Jar Jar and was like the architect of Jar Jar was like so deflated when people like hated Jar Jar. And Lucas, he tells a quote from like Lucas at the time being like, don't worry, like 20 years from now, there's going to be kids who come up to you and say, Jar Jar's my favorite.
So he's the Galen Erso of ILM.
Yeah.
But Lucas was right. Like, the kids have come around.
And we're right about
to
Galen
Jar
Erso.
Jar.
He was a good guy.
Yeah.
I will say, even though I was never the biggest Star Wars fan, I do think that had more to do with like the fan culture around it than it did the properties itself. But B, I've always respected for Star Wars for what it's done for sci-fi and cinema in general, because a lot of things I love wouldn't exist if it wasn't for
Yeah.
Star Wars. So like, always respect it, but have sort of historically felt of it the way Timothée Chalamet feels about opera and ballet, which I love. I love opera and ballet. So
Yeah, the fandom around Star Wars has almost from its inception been a little complicated, to say the least.
Maybe that's why we have a podcast about Star Wars and leftist politics, because Star Wars fans and leftists are equally annoying.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also like,
They won't shut up.
Uh-huh. They all think they're right.
Yeah.
And they think everyone who disagrees with them is an idiot or a moron or a fascist.
Yeah.
yes, I mean, to defend annoying fans of any franchise anywhere for a moment, I understand that you go about your day-to-day life and everyone like looks at this thing you love like it's an oddity or a weird thing about you. And so that desire to get to completely immerse yourself in other people who love it as much as you do, I totally respect and empathize, and like, you deserve to have that.
Yeah.
It's just, as these things have blown out and become more and more culturally relevant, and they're not as niche, the like having this like bar you have to clear where like you have to love it in the same way I do, to the same amount as I do, and you have to know the same things I do, or like I don't want to talk to you about it, that is off-putting.
Yeah.
Like I have a lot of experience with like Star Trek and Star Trek fans, and what I would like, they have Star Trek Las Vegas for that, where it's like no one's going to Star Trek Las Vegas unless you're a diehard or the partner of a diehard. So like that's a place where it's like, yeah, be as like purist about your love and have your opinions and ask your quizzes and test other people's fandom, like go for it because you're at Star Trek Las Vegas. But like at Comic-Con, like maybe you don't need to walk up to a person dressed like a Trek character and like quiz them, because Comic-Con's about like broader franchises.
Yeah.
And like maybe they just wanted to test their sewing skills to see if they could sew the outfit, and I think that's just as valid a reason to wear a Star Trek outfit to Comic-Con. So I think with the Star Wars stuff, it's just like the sense of like, is this the time and place for this level of gatekeeping was lost.
Ooh, James Cromwell is going to be at this year's Star Trek Las Vegas.
He is?
Yeah, I just looked at who's attending. Noted socialist James Cromwell.
Oh, that's very cool.
Kelsey's like, I got a plan. What am I going to ask James Cromwell about?
Well, I will likely be on maternity leave, and now I'm just like, do I want to go to Vegas? Like 6 weeks after giving birth? Probably not. But if James Cromwell's going to be there, maybe it's worth it.
That's why it was so it was funny when he was on Succession, where it's just like the politics of that character are just his.
Yeah. I'm assuming you haven't watched any of the other like Star Wars TV shows. Is Andor the only one of these that you've
Andor
watched?
is the only one I watched.
Okay, because I just ask because like,
did you see the most recent movies?
No.
Oh, you haven't even seen the films?
No.
Have you seen Rogue One? The prequel, the prequel that Andor is a prequel to.
Is that the one with Daisy Ridley?
No, those are the sequel trilogy.
No.
Okay.
So
Wait, so you've seen the Daisy Ridley one?
I saw one of them.
One of them.
I could not tell you which one.
So after you watch Andor, you should probably watch Rogue One, which is like the culmination of Andor.
Okay.
It was a movie that they made as a standalone thing that Andor is the prequel to.
Yes, I do know that history.
Okay.
This is the prequel. I don't need to know what happens at the end yet. I can get there when I get there.
Okay. I was only asking because for like most of Star Wars' history, Star Wars was like the movie franchise and Star Trek was the TV franchise.
Yes.
And then after like the success of the Star Wars movies, Star Trek became movies too.
Well,
and then now like Star Wars is becoming TV.
So
I was just
Star Trek
about
had the original series.
Yeah.
Well, it's all computer now.
It's all computer.
Yeah, it's all It's, now everything's on your iPhone.
Everything computer.
Yeah. So Star Trek had the original series and it got canceled. And then it got sold into syndication, which was really special at the time because most things you had to have 100 episodes and they didn't, or you had to have a certain number of seasons and they didn't. So it was like exceptional. And then gained a lot of traction. And then when Star Wars came out, Paramount or CBS or NBC, I can't remember who owned it at the time.
I think it was Paramount.
I think it was still Paramount, was like, oh, we should try to build off the success of this.
Yeah.
And so they started doing the movies and developing the next generation.
Yeah.
And then for years, the company that owned the rights to the television show was different than the company that owned the rights to the movie after the next gen movies. Yeah, after the next gen movies. So like that's why you didn't get a lot of crossover. And then now they are back under the same ownership, and that is all I can say.
Okay.
So yeah, I think both shows I kind of have their sort of political leanings, but I feel like Star Trek is sort of more upfront sometimes with its sort of how do you sort of see those two different things?
You know, and I might be wrong because I don't watch a lot of Star Wars. So this is me going off of gut assumptions. This is not me claiming what I am saying is correct, but like I always saw Star Trek as like explicitly political. You know, Gene Roddenberry had tried to tell stories about race inequality in previous shows like The Lieutenant, and they were killed by censors. And our understanding is that that is what inspired him to get into genre. Besides, he read a lot of science fiction novels. He had respect for genre as an art form, but he realized that like, if I can't tell it in the here and now, if I do stories about us in the future, I have more leeway to tackle these kind of issues. And that is core to the DNA of what Star Trek is and has always been. And I would personally argue when Star Trek is at its best, it is challenging us in that way, in a way that makes us identify with both the people who are like us now and the people who are not like us. Star Wars always seemed a little bit more like fantasy to me than science fiction.
Yeah. It has wizards and magic.
Yes. And
Well,
which is not
except for Andor.
right, which is like not like quality or moral judgment, but Star Wars has politics because it is created by people who live in a world, and those people are affected by politics, and it like seeps through. But like it never struck me until I started watching Andor, and I'm sure fans right now are like screaming into their phones, like naming all these prior examples. But like I had never come across ones that felt explicitly political, especially because like the original stories where it's like the boy who was born a prince and it's his royal bloodline rather than like a democratization of stuff. So part of what was nice, why I like Andor, is because the politics are way more explicit, and for me that is a big selling point. Apologies for all of the other explicitly political Star Wars movies I am ignoring in that statement. But
I would say like the only other one that kind of got that close to it was like Rogue One is kind of the first dipping the toe in the water of like making Star Wars a little bit more explicitly political, and then Last Jedi touches on ideas about like war profiteering and the role that arms dealers have in the galactic civil war.
There you go.
So like it comes
and
up,
I know
but Andor is like the first time that like that subtext truly becomes the core thesis of the show, as opposed to something they're kind of touching on.
Yes, and to be very clear to anyone whose politics are very inspired or shaped by their love of Star Wars, I'm not saying that hasn't happened. Once you put something out in the world, it becomes the fans and they pull from it what they want. I just like, when I watched the original movies or anything up until Andor, I don't know how involved he is on Andor. You guys could probably tell me, but like, I could watch Star Trek, especially the original series, and make very educated inferences on Gene Roddenberry's thoughts and feelings on the world. And I never felt like I could do that with George Lucas.
Georgie is enjoying his time up north and has no power over Star Wars anymore.
Yeah, although I did recently stumble across a conversation he had with the Russian science fiction filmmaker Tarkovsky, which is really, really fascinating. It doesn't really express his politics, but Tarkovsky is quite explicit. And like, I'll keep it very short, but the interesting thing is George Lucas is asking like, how do you deal with all the censorship? And Tarkovsky goes, oh, we have way less censorship than you do. I'm paraphrasing obviously, but like he says, all I have to do is like not explicitly criticize the government. You have to make yours marketable.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more I can do because I can take artistic risks. I just can't point to my like government and be like bad, but like anything else is on the table where it's like you have to appeal to masses, and that's much more limiting.
Lucas has stolen that quote because I've heard him say that in a different interview more recently.
I think
So, like, he came up with it?
No, I don't know that he stole it. I think
he's
I
like
think
carrying it forward.
I think he was convinced. I think it shifted his perspective.
I don't think he quoted Tartakovsky is more what I meant.
Fair.
I as somebody who had his politics shaped by Star Wars, you had to read into it. Like it's not quite as explicit as what Star Trek was doing until here.
You know, I have not watched too much Star Trek, but I think the feeling I get of the Star Trek I've watched is that it's almost like a post-politics society. That there's sort of like this general consensus among most of the crew that like we've established universal healthcare, we've had sort of like these basic rights. When we go to other planets, we are explaining those concepts to new races. But the people themselves in the Star Trek world are sort of like a general consensus about...
The whole conceit of Star Trek is that we will only once we have evolved beyond our petty differences will we be able to create these incredible technologies that will launch us into space exploration. You know, it does in Star Trek lore come after a World War III that was quite brutal. But yes, Star Trek is humans like us today after we have evolved past a lot of our political differences, and we have the replicator, so there's like not a scarcity of resources and all of that kind of stuff. But even in then, like there is a really famous episode called The Devil in the Dark where there's a monster attacking the crew, but the crew was like drilling, and it turns out that like we were unknowingly attacking their baby. So it does still, even as it is a much more flawless version of humanity portrayed, deal with moral gray areas and tell stories that sort of are allegories to things going on today.
Yeah, I think that's why I personally bounced off it, because I'm like, this sounds great. I wish it was like this. Like it's versus Star Wars, where I'm like, even when it's bad, I'm like, I can see more similarities to modern day as opposed to sort of like this post-utopian.
Yeah, it's definitely utopian. It's supposed to inspire.
Yeah.
There have been attempts to try to tell the story of how we evolved into those people and varying levels of success. And like every Star Trek fan has their idea of like what makes real, quote unquote, real Star Trek versus not. And like so much of that is shaped of like, well, okay, what show were you watching when you were a kid?
Yeah.
And all that jazz. Like Deep Space Nine is beloved by some fans because it all explores moral gray area. But then other fans are like, that wasn't real Trek because we're supposed to have been better than all of that moral gray area.
So it's just the Luke debate again.
Yeah. So like it sort of just depends. But for sure it is like a post-capitalist society. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting with Star Trek because right now we're seeing a lot of these like tech billionaires point to Star Trek as a huge reference and like inspiration for like using like data as an inspiration for AI and all that kind of stuff. And it just reminds me of that quote, like, technology is neither good nor bad, but nor is it morally neutral because it is influenced by the society that made us. And there's some technologies that are coming that I'm like, I think we're just not ready.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that I think AI in and of itself as a concept is inherently evil. I just think the society that is creating it and the people who have their hands on the levers of power of that society are quite evil, and it will be used for evil. But if we could put it in a box and come back into it in 100 years, maybe it's the thing that gets us to a post-work society.
But what I'm hearing is you kind of have to, like, at a certain point, you kind of have to yada yada your way beyond that question to the, like, utopian world.
Oh, Star Trek.
It's so hard to actually dramatize and depict how do we go from where we are now to that universe.
Correct. Yes, it is the core conceit. Yeah. This is a world that is in this utopia, and it's about people exploring, and everyone is valued for what they do and what they bring, not how much money they have or anything like that. The same way, like, if you're not going to get on board with the concept of a Jedi, like, you're never going to be able to get into Star Wars. Like, you just have to accept certain bits of the conceit.
Yeah, and my point is, like, I think Star Wars is all about that transition, but it doesn't necessarily have an idea of, like, what is beyond that.
Correct.
Beyond that conflict. We have all of Star Wars' stories of rebellions and people fighting and civil wars and people disagreeing about the way the universe should be run.
Right.
But as soon as one side wins, the other side is lurking in the shadows and will pop back up and the cycle will begin again.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
Between the original trilogy and the prequels and the sequels and the High Republic, like it's all just one constant churn.
Has there ever been like a Star Wars like in peacetime?
So that's like what the High Republic universe is supposed to be.
Okay.
That's like the golden age of the Republic when it was it kind of leans even more into like the fantasy world of it. But even in those stories, there's the undercurrent of like dark side energy that will be bubbling up until it rises up in the prequels. So that's where the show The Acolyte comes in, and this whole like universe of like books and comics and stuff that explore the High Republic
and
world.
The Jedi is still shitty UN.
Yeah, the Jedi are still space cops. They're just a little bit more in tune with what the galaxy actually needs.
Got it.
But they're still fucking it up back then, and that's what then sets the stage for all of the fuck-ups that follow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think how do I say this without sounding like this is not a critique of Star Trek, because not every show has to tackle every philosophical question. But the older I get, and the more I've sort of witnessed like either history repeating itself, like with another war in the Middle East started on false pretenses, with a president who lost the popular vote his first time in office.
We recorded an episode about Venezuela.
Yeah, and now
it came out the week that we attack Iran. Yeah. So I'm excited to see what happens when this episode comes out.
Oh Lord,
presumably Cuba, I would guess.
Yeah, I think that's a fair.
Yeah. Great. Well,
I'm putting my Kalshi bet in right now.
God, apologies to Cuba then for even referencing this. But like, yeah, the more I've sort of also seen a backside of like cultural values where the Republicans I remember of the 90s, like there are certain social issues that like they were more progressive on, and then there's been a backslide, and all of that kind of stuff. But like the more I view progress as a verb, and like it's not a final destination you reach and then just get to like coast in, like you constantly have to like water that plant. I think I've just used like 3 metaphors in one. And I think it would be cool to see some franchise that does not currently exist explore like what is it when it's utopia, where there's always the risk of a backslide, but it's not quite as dark as Star Wars, and not quite as like utopia is a final destination you can get and just like move into.
It's almost as if the history of all existing society is the history of class struggles.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But I think you bring up an interesting thing before, which I want to comment on, which is like people saying like the show is political. And to me, my always response to that is like, everything is political.
Of course.
Everything exists in a political context. This pen is political. It exists out of an economic context. Whether it has good politics or it's politics you don't like, but something can't be inherently non-political.
Well, and also like things, especially things created in the United States, sometimes are meant for entertainment. It's okay to like something and not like the politics of it.
Yeah.
Like, especially once you're like, I think as someone who's like about to become a mother and
what?
Yeah. This is, if you could see me, this is extra funny because I'm in my 3rd trimester and like so obviously pregnant. But like, and also like a mother to a boy. And as much as I want to be like, well, I have good politics, my husband has good politics, like there's no risk of him being red pilled. Like I'm obviously like terrified of that happening because like at some point he's going to be too old for me to supervise his time on the internet without being like the most overbearing parent to the point where like maybe that causes more harm than good. And like, what do you do then? Like, how do you know what YouTubers your kids are watching when they're 13, sure, but 16, like how do you even know if your kid likes Nick Fuentes if they're not telling you I like Nick Fuentes? So like with that, so I guess my point being like, when you're a parent and you're like deciding what you're going to let your kids watch, like maybe don't expose them to things if you don't like the politics, but like there are lots of television shows that I really enjoy that like if I think about their politics, they're bad, but they're still just good entertainment, or the characters are interesting enough that like I don't need everything to appeal to my lefty brain.
Like Anastasia.
Or Yellowstone.
I think we call that the Harry Potter problem.
Yeah, well, I think the Harry Potter problem is actually that its politics were also somewhat implied. And so a lot of liberal, studious, like Hermione Grangers in their own right, like saw themselves in those characters and saw the World War II allegory and didn't allow in their imagination for an alternate interpretation. And so then when J.K. Rowling was like, actually, I'm awful. And maybe the Death Eaters weren't like not the Nazis. Maybe it was the other side I meant to represent them.
Well, I think without getting to like a huge Harry Potter discussion, which I did not want to do, but I think like I thought you were going to say is like you can almost draw like a connection between Hermione and like Obama era politics of like it's just like it's hyper like intelligent, hyper like aware. Like if you just study the most and know everything about it, then as long as those people succeed or are elevated, then you'll be able to solve politics.
It's very technocratic.
Yeah.
And it's very much based on this idea that like if I'm right and just say the right thing, then other people will believe and listen to me. Like anyone living in a state with a measles outbreak knows that like just because accurate information is out there doesn't mean people are going to listen to you. And unfortunately, sometimes like you do have to sell your ideas to a broader public. And also
your pilot of the class conflict within Hogwarts, it will not be getting produced. Yeah.
No. Well, and also like the problem with the like, as long as the Hermiones of the world are elevated is okay, but like what does that mean for the people who are not academically gifted or who are not smart, or like to bring it into like a real society? Like, okay, what happens if you are differently abled and you can't produce capital the way our society is currently built? Because if it's just based on quote unquote ability, you still have an underclass of people and you're going to have a very deeply unequal society. And what abilities are valued or encouraged is always going to depend, like as long as it's under capitalism, is always going to depend on which abilities can be exploited for the production of capital. And so I think we also just saw the like lore, like with millennials, I think Gen Z has beat us at this point, but like when we first graduated in 2008, it's like we were the highest educated population with like the lowest amount of money and jobs and the largest gap between getting a degree and getting a well-paying job. And I think a lot of people were like, you know, even if I wasn't smart, I still deserve a well-paying job. Like, yes, I'm bitter because I worked hard and I did everything right and I wasn't rewarded, but also I'm working really hard at this menial labor job and I should still be able to afford a decent life for myself and my family, even if I was not academically gifted or even if I hadn't gone to college. So I just think the tyranny of the Hermiones is over.
So we've gone through Star Trek and we've gone through Harry Potter. Should we
get into Star Wars?
I think we should go into the thing this podcast is about. But we have one very important question to ask, which is in honor of the late, great Mark Maron. Who are your glup shittos?
I mean, Jar Jar Binks, obviously.
Jar Jar. That's what I thought.
Is there a B? Is there a...
It seems like Jar Jar is your number one.
Jar Jar is for sure my number one.
Do you have a special affinity to like all the Gungans, or is it just Jar Jar in particular?
It's just Jar Jar.
So how do you feel about Jar Jar voting for fascism?
Yeah, how do you feel about Jar Jar being the one? Do you know this?
Do you know this?
I do not know this.
Jar Jar is the one who introduces the Patriot Act into the Senate and gives Senator Palpatine Chancellor Palpatine the war powers that allows him to become the Galactic Emperor. He jingles the keys in front of Jar Jar and he hands over.
Then he goes to Senator after the first movie, and then.
Listen, I'm also a big Real Housewives fan, but that doesn't mean my favorites are getting spared from the Hague. So I think Jar Jar can go to the Hague, and I could just watch old clips of him and be like, he was funny.
But yeah, back in his stand-up comedy days.
Yeah, like his cuteness does not exempt his actions.
Well, if it makes you feel better, he's so humiliated at the end of the trilogy that he becomes a street busker on the streets of Naboo and takes in an orphan.
That's how...
And they start panhandling for money.
That's so much... Okay. Lucasfilms, we need to go down this road.
Yeah.
An embarrassed street artist is the most dangerous fucking thing around right? Like, that's how Hitler became Hitler. Stalin was an embarrassed, insecure poet. Like, I think that does not make me feel better. I'm just like, what is Jar Jar's revenge? Because it's going to be so much worse. It's going to be so much worse.
Do you know the theory about Darth Jar Jar?
No.
That he's secretly a Sith master who was manipulating strings from the very beginning. It was a theory.
I mean, look, if he does his time as an embarrassed, humiliated street artist, then like for sure that holds water to me. If history has taught me everything.
Yeah.
Confident buskers, you're good. Insecure buskers, red flag.
I'm looking up Jar Jar's Wikipedia, and it's a quote about
Alex is
no.
crying.
Oh no.
He's so overcome with emotion.
Asked about his role in bringing about the empire, quote, Disa hisen navu, think I helped the empire. Me no.
Wait, the empire is so good.
Help the empire.
The
empire.
That's what like Joe Rogan's gonna say about Trump after this term.
Yes.
I
helped the
empire.
Hey guys, it's Joe Rogan. I made a little bit of a political whoopsie. Helped the party. And they did the bad.
Okay. On the note of empire, should we?
Yeah. I think with that, we are now ready to dive in to part 5 of season 1, episode 7, where last week on Andor, Cassian said goodbye to Bix, and today he returns to Maarva's home, and Bee gives him a very warm welcome. But Andor notices that they haven't done much packing, and Bee tries to tell Andor that Maarva says they can't go, but Maarva tells him to be quiet. And Andor can't believe what he's hearing, and he tries to remind Maarva that it's not safe here now that there's an Imperial barracks on Rick's Road, and Maarva scoffs, good luck to them. She reminds Andor that this is happening everywhere, and when Andor suggests that they can find a place the Empire hasn't ruined yet, she tells him that she's already there, in her mind, where no one can find her, no matter how many barracks they build. And why does she want to stay so badly? 2 words, the rebellion. Andor thinks she's gone mad, but Maarva knows this is overdue and probably doomed, and I'm too old, and I don't care. And
Queen.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about, Maarva heading into this scene, and then we'll kind of go beat by beat through this scene here?
I mean, I love it. When we meet her, she saves this kid and becomes like this mother figure, mom to him, and I think that's really beautiful. I also just think I'm not yes, it's only one life, but I'm not gonna let the Empire take one more, really shows it. And then the fact that it seems like their lives have really evolved to how do we try to give this kid the best life possible? There seems to be a lot less. I mean, I don't know, I'm filling things in based on just the 7 episodes that I have watched to this point, or that we are talking about up to this point, of now that we've got this kid, we can't be taking as big of risks. We just want to give him a good life. He grows up to follow in their footsteps, but it's not motivated by explicit desire to change things for the broader society. And then I don't know. I don't want to go too far ahead, but I have so many thoughts, because even while this series is so explicitly political, and there's lots to dive into in this scene, which we will, it's just such, at its core, at its heart, it is such a beautiful mother-son scene.
Yeah.
And her kind of looking, I mean, it's funny because she doesn't know that he's the one who has inspired her to join the rebellion, and he feels really guilty because he was not trying to inspire anything. He just wanted to get money so they could finally have that sense of home and safety they've been trying to build their whole lives. But just this woman looking at her son and being I have raised you, you are grown, you are good, so now I get to return to me and who I was before I became a mom. And also recognizing that I want to fight for a better future for you, and for the next generation. And I can, now that you are grown and I've like finished that job, I can risk more for that fight.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm like tearing up. It's just, I think it's so, and then him being like, no, but I'm stepping into my role as the caretaker of my parent. And like, I don't want to see you take those risks. I just think it's so beautiful and so human. And aside, like, especially as a leftist, where I think we can really romanticize the idea of revolution or rebellion and that fight, we sometimes can overlook the like deep personal cost it takes and the calculus that people have to do. And like, when do I go about my day-to-day life? When do I make sure there's money to pay for groceries? When do I, do the regular stuff in a very irregular world and time, versus when is it appropriate for me to be on the front lines, as it were. And I just think it's like also like a really beautiful portrayal of like that calculus and debate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the scene just before this is Andor's like flashback to like his dad getting caught in the crossfire of like an anti-empire protest. Like he's seen what getting involved can lead to, like he wasn't trying to be a part of this protest, but it got him killed.
But my question is like, do you think Maarva reads theory?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah,
no.
I think she's like an angry like liberal mom who has just been like she's just been seeing like all this horrible stuff on the news for so many years. And because, at this point she launches into a monologue about how for 13 years she's avoided the spot where her husband Clem was hanged. And after she heard about the attack at Aldani, she's realized that there are heroes brave enough to take on a whole Imperial garrison, and that's inspired her to be brave enough to stick it out here on Ferrix. And so I think for the last 13 years, her philosophy has just been that, like, Clem stuck his neck out and it got him killed. And if I do the same thing, Andor's going to be all alone. And so I need to stay small. I need to stay hidden. And now at this point, it's all become too much.
Yes. I also think that like theory is essential and useful, and read it because it can guide us in the different ways to come about the fight and to fight the fight and help us imagine the world that we want to build after we've won the fight. But oftentimes, because it is so theoretical, it forgets like at the core, what people on both sides of revolutions are usually fighting for. It's just the question is like, well, for whom does this apply? You just want a sense of home, and you want that sense of home to be safe for you and your chosen family, whatever that might look like. As leftists and Marxists, we have a very material understanding of like the conditions that are needed to build and supply a safe home. You have to have access to food and all that stuff. But like at its core, everyone just wants to be able to create a sense, like a safe sense of home for themselves and the people they consider family. And this scene really just distills to that, and her recognition of like, I will never have that because my husband is gone, but I couldn't risk as much because it was too important for me to keep you safe.
Yeah.
But now I don't have to worry about you, and I can join a revolution so that like if he were to have children, his children might have that safe sense of home. Whereas for him, he kind of did the like liberal thing of like, look, I got the money to make us potentially exempt from these harsh circumstances.
Yeah.
And she can never be exempt because she's already lost too much, and she's really old. Like her life is almost, she's in her final act. She can't be exempt. Her childhood to her middle ages were defined by this oppression. Why not take her last stab at a sense of liberation by trying to fight and free the world from what she went through?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm sort of thinking like how much of her politics predate Clem being killed. Because I'm trying to like go through like what are her, like for her to make the decision to even adopt Cassian in the first place feels like a choice that a lot of other people wouldn't go like adopt a kid that you have nothing to do with. That is like the question I'm having in my head is like Cassian is sort of like we know that he's been a fuck up his whole life.
Yeah.
And how much of that was in rebellion to what Maarva was teaching him of community, of the importance of staying in these things? Or is this something that she sort of came to after in the last 10 years? I guess that's my question.
When we meet Maarva in like episode 2 or 3, she's clearly like the idealist, and Clem is the one who's there saying like, we can't afford to take this kid on. Like, have you really thought through what this is going to mean to us? And she says something along the lines of, well, too late, I already did it, we'll figure it out later.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know how much premeditation there was then, because it's not like she's like, look, this is a doomed planet.
Yeah.
Let's fly onto it and rescue a kid.
No,
it's like,
not.
It's the choice is really, do we leave this kid to die or not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Maarva in that moment says no.
Right.
And I think that's like probably just like her political philosophy is seeing an opportunity to take action and making that choice.
Right.
But she is now, for the last 13 years, been somebody who does not make that choice and instead has been pulling back. And I think at this point, she regrets that and is trying to like make up for lost time.
Yeah. And I also think like they say, and as a parent to be, I resent this, but they say that becoming a parent makes you more conservative.
Yeah.
And I disagree with that. However, the immediate demands of your energy and your time, you are a younger being's entire world. So I do think your willingness to take risks, if it means your baby will not be able to have you anymore to eat, I think your risk aversion decreases, at least in the like early years of parenthood.
Yeah.
And I know that Andor is older when they get him, but like
not that much.
That much older, and she would still be a new mom at that point. So I don't even know how much it made her more conservative, but I think that she was willing, the risks she was taking were all in service of making sure that he could have a decent life and be as safe as possible. And she wasn't about to do anything to bring the stormtroopers like into their home or onto them. And I think his anger at what he witnessed them do to his sister became the driving force of his politics. And one of the things I expect to see as the series goes on is him realizing that like he also cannot become exempt from this oppression because they've also already taken too much from him. It's just the immediate quest of how do we get enough credits to be able to try to create a false sense of safety for ourselves. I mean, that's the thing too. It's like the oppression comes for everybody eventually. Like, yeah, you could have a nice house and a big fence and it might keep you safer for longer, but like, especially now, climate change is coming for all of us. So, but like when we meet her, she just no longer needs to be risk averse.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, I'm just curious. It's not to move from her, but like the idea that like Cassian is what? Presumably, how old is he supposed to be when Clem dies? Is it 10 years ago?
13 years ago.
So
like 15 or 18, somewhere around
like,
there.
I'm questioning, was he already a miscreant before that happened? Or is that the moment that sort of breaks him?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the moment that breaks him, because we should also say, like, during the scene as Maarva is talking about the bravery of these people who took on Aldhani, it triggers a memory of Cassian, for Cassian, where he's walking through the square past Clem's dead body hanging there. And he charges at a gang of stormtroopers with a club. And we know that this is the incident that lands him in Imperial Juvie. And I think the juxtaposition of these two scenes is trying to communicate that, like, Andor might even, like, regret having done that because of, like, the consequences that it had on his life, sending him to prison. And then, yeah, I think, like, once that happened, he became rebellious, is my kind of feeling. That not just that, like, he lost his father figure, but I think seeing the horrible circumstances in which he was taken away and seeing the carelessness and the thoughtlessness that can lead to you being killed taught him that nothing matters. So I may as well just go out and do whatever it is.
When we meet him, there's a nihilism.
And
nihilism is very, very dangerous to revolutionary politics. You have to have an optimistic streak, even if you are focusing on the bad, in order to build a better world. And I think in this scene, which you've already discussed on this podcast, but where his dad dies, his dad is trying to break up a fight and then gets blamed and killed
he's not making a revolutionary act. Yeah.
Right. So, like, I think also Cassian learns that, like, don't try to help other people.
Yeah.
Like, you have to look out for yourself. And there is a scene you will discuss on a different episode of this podcast that comes later where he really gets a lesson learned of, like, you can't, like, or at least now at this point, the Empire has gotten to the point where, like, you also can't keep your head down and expect to be safe.
Yeah.
That whatever rules he had constructed for himself to allow him to take these, like, shots at the Empire that were rooted more in personal spite and a personal fuck you than they were in any kind of sense of let's try to change things or work together. Those rules are now different, and, you know, what's weaker than the power of one?
Yeah, because when his leader dies on Canary, he enters into the ship and just starts smashing things up. And he's basically doing the same thing here.
Yes.
That, like, his emotion overcomes him so much that all he can think to do is just attack the problem.
Yeah.
And I think what Maarva is trying to do is saying, like, we can channel that into some kind of action. And there's a choice, there's something in between throwing yourself into the maws of your enemy and running away.
Well, because also, like, to take that, like, emotional outburst, like, he just can't feel this icky anymore. And so he does something to make himself feel better. It's not logical. He's not, you know, he's a kid and he's mad and he's hurting. And so he's smashing things. And then his rebellion when he gets older after his dad dies is very, very similar. And his quest for credits and money, and he's got, like, a bevy of lovers across the galaxy. Like, he's just trying to make himself feel better. And he comes to Maarva and he's like, I got all this money. We could go somewhere where we could feel better. And she's like, I will never feel better.
Yeah.
But maybe I can build better. And I think it is that shift.
Build back better.
The what?
Build back better.
Oh, God. Not that. But, like, it's that shift from the individualism of, like, I have been hurt by this system, and if I succeed or I become exempt, I mean, it's honestly, it's girl boss shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, well, I own a company, and so therefore feminism is fixed. And it's like, if you're not bringing everyone else up with you, then it's not fixed. And in a peacetime or a more, when the forces of politics, the tug of war is a little bit more even-handed, maybe you can keep yourself exempt. But as we're all living through, and as we're seeing, like, powerful people on sort of, like, I mean, even MAGA people are now realizing that, like, oh shit, like, I'm not exempt from this stuff. Like, I voted for Trump and my partner got taken by ICE, but I thought they were going to know we were the good ones because of how we voted. Like, we're seeing people learn that, like, you actually can't make yourself exempt from oppression in perpetuity. So you might as well just join the side of the people who are trying to fight that oppression and build a better world. And Cassian in this episode is not there yet. He's still just desperately trying to feel better. And I think it's interesting that the scene ends with her saying, forget your sister, because it's so personal to him, but he hasn't channeled that into a sense of collective liberation or a sense of collective motivation. He really, even though he's, like, the hero and he's inspiring and I've enjoyed watching his journey up to this point, like, he really is so just about him. I mean, he's Rick from Casablanca. He's so heartbroken and he's so hurt and he sticks his neck out for no one, but, like, you know, underneath there is a revolutionary spirit, and he just needs the final fuck you to get there. And for Rick, it's given up on his love, and I imagine for Cassian, it's what happens to him at the end of this episode.
Yeah, I think his sister is a project that he can work on, that he can funnel all of his energy towards. Yeah, and it's like horse blinders. If I'm just focusing on my sister, I don't have to worry about anything else that's going on around it. Yeah, that is a project that he can just focus on.
If I can save her, it will have made all my other choices okay.
Also is such a beautiful parallel to what Maarva has done for the last 13 years, which is just focused on Cassian.
Yeah.
You know, my joke is that most of the American left is just oppositional defiant disorder. It's just like, you want to yell at your parents, so you do it in politics and just...
Look, I think that's a beautiful entry point. You just have to evolve beyond that. And I think we see on the American left when we talk about, like, people eat, like, how the left always eats its tail. so much of that comes down to like, I had an idea that I was going to be the leader of, and then other people voted for someone else's idea, so I'm personally offended. And like, there are so many different forms of leadership, and we're not all supposed to be the Cassian.
Yeah. Well, on that point, in talking about like arguing with your parents, at this point in the conversation,
Good pivot.
Maarva says that, you know, she doesn't expect Andor to understand, and he tries to convince her that it was just a robbery. Like, this is really as much political value as kind of Andor can see in the Aldhani heist.
Yeah.
That he doesn't see it as a revolutionary act. He just saw it as a robbery that got people killed. And Maarva knows that this is a sign that people will stand up to the Empire and do whatever it takes. And she says, I've been lying around waiting to die long enough, which is what, like, I think those last 13 years have been for her.
Yeah.
And then Andor tells her that she doesn't stand a chance at beating them. And this is the only part where Maarva raises her voice at him. And she yells, not if I run away. And she softens after that and admits that you have a different path, Cass, and I'm not judging you. Everything you've been through, everything that was taken away from you before you even started, take all the money you found and go and find some peace. And Andor says that he won't be able to have peace without her because he'll just be worrying about her all the time. And here Maarva has a simple answer with a smile. That's just love, nothing you can do about that. I've never loved anything the way I love you. I've never fretted on anything more, but this time you can't stay and I can't go. And it's just like this
it's so heartbreaking.
heartrending.
And like, I cannot think of like how many parents are currently in a situation where they're having to make that choice.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you watch The Pit, but
Yes,
there is
the exact same thing. Yeah.
Storyline in, I think, episode 8, where there's a little boy and his college-age sister's taking care of him, and she's having to work full-time and go to school full-time. And they find out that like ICE deported their parents to Haiti, but their parents were like, your life will be better here. Like, the best parenting we can do is to leave you behind. And I don't know what parents in Gaza or Iran, but so many parents are having to make that choice where they have to give up their own personal connection to, I can't fucking do this. They have to give up their like own, they understand that like once you have a child, it becomes about them. And if the world is harsh enough to you, maybe you're not entitled to see them happy, but you are obligated to do everything you can to make them happy.
Your heart is outside your body and it exists in them and you have to protect.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes that means sending them away. But what is, I think, so cool about this moment is like she's done that and now she gets to do something for herself again. But I found that moment like so, it's what makes the show so good too. And like, in any explicitly political franchise, it when they have these moments that do bring them into the personal, because as much as we could just say like, and we just did, like, you have to focus on the group and what's right for most amount of people, and you have to get over your own individualist anger and putting it to something productive. It is ultimately our personal emotional lives that like bring us to the left, and the personal does way into it.
Yeah.
And it's just such a beautiful scene. And also like, even though Cassian is wrong and that heist was explicitly political and was about furthering a revolution, it wasn't for him. He was not aware of that. And now, you know, he participated in a situation that got his sister potentially taken or killed. And then he wasn't able to stop his dad. And he just stood there on the sidelines and watched his dad get killed. And now he's done that has something that has inspired his mother to go on a suicide mission. It doesn't matter how much she wants to say, I don't judge you, go find somewhere and find your peace. He can't.
Yeah.
Or he might end the fight and end the revolution when he comes together, but like, it is still taking him taking so much. And I find it very interesting that he doesn't admit to her
Yeah.
in that conversation of like, I was there. That's where I got the money. It was just about the money.
Well, that would break her heart. If she was like, oh, this was not done out of a revolutionary fervor, this was entirely economic for you, that would hurt the value of what that moment is to her.
But I think I think the reason he's not telling her is because it would put her at risk if she knew.
Yes.
Because if she knew that he was an Aldani, she would become a target for the Empire, and they would come after her. Like, he needs to keep it a secret.
I also don't, like, it might break her heart a little bit, but I don't know that it would ultimately change the course she's chosen.
Yeah.
Because she does say something in that scene, like, if they're willing to stand up to the Empire at all for any reason, even a stupid one, then I could stand up to them for a good one.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of that, like, Rosa Luxemburg quote about how, like, you can't actually shape the political moment. All you could do is try to do the work so that when the wave comes, everyone in your movement knows how to write it properly.
Yeah.
We don't know what these moments that cause inspiration or cause a flashpoint are going to be. And when we've seen people in the past try to, like, architect them, it usually goes kind of laughingly bad. Thinking of you, Alexander Berkman. But, like, you can just hope that you have the infrastructure to direct the energy once the people get inspired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's why she's saying, like, you have your role to play, and I have mine.
Yeah.
Like, if she ran away from Ferrix, she's as good as dead at that point. Like, she's nothing without her community.
I think
she would be cutting herself off even more so than letting Cassian go. Because at least if Cassian goes, she'll still worry about him and know that he's worrying about her, and that love between the two of them will stay alive.
Yes.
I think also in her mind, she's been dead since Clem died.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, on some level.
Yeah.
And after hearing the news about the Aldani raid, she says, like, I walked through the entire square with a smile.
Yeah.
Like, this is the first time she's felt alive.
Because it's the first time she's felt hope.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I also think too, like, she knows her time is limited, even if she is left in peace.
Yeah.
She might as well get to be useful.
I think that reminds me a lot. It's something I think about a lot of, like, people who are drawn to the left, I think in general everybody sees the world, the horrific things happening in the world around them and inequality around them. And most people have the ability to just, not necessarily avoid it, but sort of like keep living their lives.
Yeah.
And there's a percentage of people who are just don't have that buffer in their system and just see these things and go, this is so terrible, I have to do something. And that is why that is people who come to the left, but those people are also the emotionally sensitive people who then are not struggle to then deal with interpersonal issues because they are the same level of, like, that ability to sort of compartmentalize is gone. And I think what you're seeing here is that as the revolution grows and grows, it's bringing in people who have the smaller buffer of it.
Yeah.
So if, like, maybe she wasn't there to be a read theory, but she's closer to that empathetic level that she now gets it more that something is wrong.
When I was in high school, I got, like, really obsessed with 60s counterculture movements, which was very confusing for my parents because they did not get obsessed with what their parents were like in their youth when they were teenagers. And as I was, like, I, like, really loved hippies and idolized them, but I was projecting, like, my politics and my family's politics onto every hippie. And then as I did more research, I realized, like, a lot of these people, like, just wanted to do drugs, listen to music, and fuck. And, like, that's why some of them were able to, like, then vote for a war after having, like, protested one when they were younger because, like, it wasn't about a broader political movement. And I remember talking to my dad when I first joined DSA and about, like, trying to talk about, like, political education and making sure people were, like, educated enough. And we were debating, like, whether or not we should use the term socialist because this was back in, like, 2017 when, like, that term was still somewhat whatever. And my dad sort of pointed out that, like, the only reason why the people in the countercultural movement who had good politics were able to be successful is because enough people who didn't have any politics followed them. And that at some point you do need to get people who are maybe there for the wrong reasons or there for silly reasons to come along with you, because the proportion of the the percentage of people who have the bandwidth to see the world and hold all that pain is always going to be somewhat small. Now, may we do a better job of like taking that, I think your jacket is cool, and bringing it into a coherent politics than maybe the past did. But also, to be fair, like a lot of the hippies died in different counterculture movements because the government sucks. So like no shade to boomers, but like I do think there is something to be said about movements needing to at some point appeal to people who are not just the true believers. Because sometimes you just need the number of bodies in the street.
Did you watch season 2 of Andor?
I watched the first 2 episodes because 2 of my really cool friends hosted a screening.
Sure. Then I won't go too deep into spoilers, but there's like one last kind of connection I want to make, which is like the resolution of Bix's story, I think, is also echoed here. That she essentially, tells Andor towards the end of the show that like, you have your role to play here.
Yeah.
And I can't take you away from that. And that's very much like a reflection of what Maarva is saying to her here. That like the people who mean the most to Andor, he has to at a certain point put the rebellion before them. At this point, he does not know that. But I think by the time we get to the Andor in season 2, he does.
Well, I think that is such a good... We've been dancing around this point, but I think especially the American left, we could sometimes ignore, not realize, not put enough weight on. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but like some combination of those kinds of things. The level of personal sacrifice that the fight that might lead to the world we want to see is going to take. And especially, as Alex pointed out, like, we're the sensitive ones. We're the ones who aren't going to turn away. It might mean that you and the love of your fucking life have to go in different directions. It might mean that you have to send your grown child away to go fight a different battle while you stay here. It might mean that you don't get to participate in the fight as much as you want because you have an infant and you feel guilty and like a traitor for the rest of your life. Like, I don't know that the revolution, I don't know that we often recognize how much the revolution is not going to feel good. Alex, you are a much better Jew than me, so jump in on this metaphor. But like, when the Jews were fleeing Egypt and they go to war with the Canaanites.
I was thinking of a different one, but you.
Well, let me do mine, and then you can do your what is probably a better one. The folks who fought the Canaanites weren't allowed into the land of milk and honey because the milk and honey is not for people who like shed blood and all of that kind of stuff. And I think, while I don't think it's going to be like, you're not allowed into our socialist utopia, the generation that builds that is going to be fucking traumatized. Mm-hmm. And I don't actually know that they're going to be able to enjoy that utopia, even with all of the socialized, like, mental health services in the world, because we're going to lose a lot. And it's going to be personal, and I don't just mean like, I don't talk to my parents because they voted for Trump. I mean, I can't see my parents.
Your parents did not, to clarify, did not vote for Trump.
My parents did not vote for Trump. My parents are very left wing. No, my parents are, I am not an anomaly in my family. I'm the logical extension of my parents' politics. But like, it's not going to be like, I lost something because we had political differences. It might be like, my parents were hung in the square like Clem, or my sister was taken. Like, we might all have to experience the same level of personal loss that has made Cassian so bitter. And I don't think we can't focus on that because like, no one's going to join us. No one's going to willingly sign up for that. But I do think it is something to be aware of, especially for folks who advocate for more accelerationist politics, is that like, the generation that builds our socialist utopia is not going to be the same generation that gets to enjoy the fruits of those labors, because we are going to be so damaged.
Mm-hmm. What was the story you were going to...
I think there's similar stories of why were the Jews forced to wander the desert for 40 years.
Oh, is it because we let, or the firstborn sons had to die?
No, it was there's the canonical reason, and then I think there's like the Talmudic interpretation of it. And I think the little reason is that if I remember correctly, that they send 2 sentries out to the land of Canaan. And they're like, God says it'll be the land of milk and honey. And one comes back and goes, what the fuck is God talking about? There's nothing there.
Yeah.
And then the one goes like, God's going to provide. And upon hearing this, God then says that they can never enter the land of, they need to have a generation die off
Before they
can go in. And the interpretation I've read is that you can't have the people who have been so hard-hardened by traumatic events build the infrastructure.
Yeah.
You need to have a generation of people who were not born in bondage, who were not born in that conflict, come out of like the next steps. Because as long as you are carrying that weight of the previous failure, you will always sort of like try to recreate and compensate with that failure.
Yeah. I like that.
Rustin, you were making a face.
I was just thinking about the thing about like hard times make hard men, and hard men make soft times.
Yeah. But it's almost saying the opposite. It's that hard times hard times make men who are
broken.
Yeah,
exactly.
And broken people build broken worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just thought we couldn't agree on a direction, and we wandered because we were just arguing.
I mean, that's the
with
joke.
ourselves.
That's the joke. Yeah. I mean, what's the joke is that how do you know Moses was Jewish? He refused to ask for directions.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
That's very funny. Getting back into the scene, though, this moment between Maarva and Andor like kind of hangs in the air for a long time until B cuts through and says, like, "Can I say something?"
Can I just say I was going when you asked me to someone else besides Jar Jar Binks, I was going to say B, but like, I actually don't think he's a minor beloved character. I cannot imagine I'm not the only one who was like, that's the puppy.
I think
That's
if we weren't on a podcast talking about Andor, you could have B as your glub shitto because
so cute.
He's mine for sure.
Yeah,
I love him very much.
Anytime he's on screen, if one of my cats is not on my lap, I like go and get them and bring my lap because I was like, I get my pet too.
And throughout this whole scene, we get all these little shots of B like watching this fight happen, like a toddler just like watching the family fight, and he's just like sadly sitting there. And every time like Maarva tells him to shut up, he like sadly like chirps down.
Yeah.
And then Maarva tells B to shut up and insists that Cassian tell her that he understands what she's saying. And Andor admits that he doesn't. And Maarva says, you'll understand eventually.
Yeah.
And then as Andor tries to leave, Maarva makes one last request to him, which you mentioned earlier, that he stop searching for his sister. It's a fantasy. There were no survivors on Kenari. What happened there was not your responsibility. You were just a child. Let it go. And I think that line, let it go.
Besides being proof that this is in fact a Disney property and they will put a crossover in wherever they can.
Exactly. No, I think that line is really nailing home that like Cassian was never going to find his sister. Like that's one of the big questions that kind of hangs over season 1. And I think like a lot of fans thought like maybe in season 2, like what if one of these characters that we've already met turns out to be Andor's sister and stuff like that. I will say
when she said stop searching, I was like, oh, I know what's happening in season 2. Like it definitely
you think it's a red herring or something. Yeah. Or like a Chekhov's sister.
Yeah. But I do think like if anyone else went to theater school, they do this thing with actors where they like carry you down so they could build you back up. And I think for me, the let it go, which sounds counter to her like newly acquired revolutionary beliefs, because arguably you might say like, no, hold on to your anger and join the revolution. But it's only once he stops making it so specific to his personal pain and that he can let it go and he can open his eyes and go like, there are a million Cassian Andors out there. Like everyone has watched a parent die, lost a sibling. Like your pain is unfortunate, like is not unique.
Yeah.
And that is why that's why we cannot just try to make ourselves exempt.
And he's expending all this energy and putting himself at risk looking for his sister. I mean, arguably the whole reason why Ferrix is under Imperial control is because he went searching for his sister. Yeah. What if instead of expending that energy into that, he had gone and made a more direct line to rebelling against the Empire?
Yeah.
Like, what could he have accomplished? But also, like,
Well,
that's
also,
the
like,
journey he had to go on.
If
to
he
get
hadn't
there.
been so focused on the thing he viewed as financially valuable to try to make himself as an individual exempt, he might have gotten out there with a lot less bloodshed, and maybe Ferrex would have not been under that control.
Yeah.
In trying to make it just about himself, he hurt a lot of people and missed the fucking prelude that would have let him know what mission he was agreeing to.
And yeah, it is. I think you're right that, like, it is a selfish want that, like, he's blaming himself for what happened to his sister, and he thinks if he can find his sister, that will absolve him of all the bad things that he's done.
He just wants
in
to
his
feel
life.
better. He just wants to feel like he did when he had a home.
It didn't hit me until we were talking about this now, which is that it reminded me a lot of like a dynamic I had with my grandparents who were Holocaust survivors, which is I would constantly they would get the idea. I'm like, I was very sensitive and like cared a lot about that and wanted to constantly, honor what they went through. And all my grandparents were like, we just want you to be happy. We didn't do this for you to carry that burden. We did this for you to be free. And I think there is that thing of like, when you are descended or when you grow up with that around you, you want to feel like that is something that you could solve for others or something that you need to solve for yourself. And people go through these struggles not for you to carry that burden, but for you to feel free. And I think that's sort of a internal contradiction I think that exists with it.
Yeah, I think for sure.
Yeah. And then at this point, Andor leaves, but with a promise that he'll come back. And Maarva's last words to him are, "Of course you are," which is very
Well, because she
sad.
knows her son.
Yeah. I think she knows that as far as Andor runs, he'll always end up coming back to Ferrex one way or another.
Yeah. Well, because also, like, we hear this talk a lot when it comes to gentrification, where the people who are trying to excuse it will say to the residents of like, well, like, now you have a nice restaurant, or now, like, you're basically saying like your home was a shithole beforehand. Like, why are you kicking us out? Why aren't you thanking us?
Yeah.
And that completely ignores the fact that, like, you're not making it nice for them. You're making it nice for outsiders to come in and displace them. But I also think that, like, even when we live in difficult, dark places, our home is often still our home. It's the place where our kids took their first steps, or we fell in love with for the first time, or all of those like personal moments that make life so robust. To have that taken from you is traumatic, even if your place was dirty or bug ridden, or I'm going to refer to Ferrex and not any Earth place, like a shithole. That was still the closest he came to having a home. And I think I'm a firm believer that, like, people need to be the vanguard of their own liberation. And so, like, the only way to make a neighborhood better is for the people living in that neighborhood to be the ones to decide the how and the where and the what that looks like, because they have a right to keep their home and make it nice and safe and clean and all of that kind of stuff.
And I think Fiona Shaw is very aware of what's about to happen, which is it's an Irish goodbye. Like, we can't say I'm leaving, because if I say I'm leaving, then we'll never stop talking. I have to kind of just leave without saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we'll never stop. I'll never leave.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no real resolution to this conflict. At the end of the day, he does just have to go and leave that future kind of hanging in the air.
Yeah. And that's another beautiful thing about this scene that makes it, I think, so heartfelt and relatable, is like, to some degree, in any good story about good relationships that involve a parent and a child, like, the child needs to leave the nest. They have to go off to college or do whatever they have to leave in order to become the grown-up they're supposed to be. And as a parent, you have to let them, and you don't get to go along for that ride, and you don't get to be there to see those parts of them sort of take form. And so I think one of the things that, like, makes this show so good is the fact that you get these, like, really personal relationship storylines that are applicable, or as applicable in a rom-com or a coming of age story as they are in this political drama, but they also serve as metaphors for a broader political force and consciousness.
I also think this is the last conversation they'll ever have.
Yeah.
And I think she's right. He will come back. She won't be there, but he will come back.
He'll come back for her, though,
Yeah.
is the reason he comes back.
Right. But
it'll probably be to bury her.
Yeah.
Fiona Shaw, good actress.
Yeah.
It's true. And one of those performances that never got as much, critical acclaim as a performance that's just as good on any other show, Like she's doing such great work here. And I think the fact that it was only in season 1 meant that by the time we got to season 2, it was a little easy to like forget about this character. But she looms so large over everything about the show.
Yeah. Also, people do not give genre its due. Like if you are you could give the most masterful performance, but if it's in a world that includes like that's sci-fi or fantasy, people are going to overlook it because sometimes people are just dumb.
If Stellan wins the Academy Award for supporting actor this year, I'm just going to choose to believe it was because of Andor.
It honestly might be because Star Wars has had a history of sort of like being snubbed, but like opening the door for other things to be recognized. Like before.
Well, usually there's only one actor who can come out of a Star Wars project with a better career than they started.
Yes. Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, like before Star Wars, sci-fi was really viewed as being for kids or silly. And then Star Trek started to change that, but it got canceled after its 3rd season. And then when you saw it pick up acclaim through syndication and then saw the box office power of Star Wars, those two things combined legitimized the entire genre.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Star Wars bullshit, what is she holding at the end?
A gun. She picks up a
is
gun.
It a gun?
It's so cool. Like
it's a gun, right? I couldn't tell if it's a blaster or if it's like a.
Oh yeah, she picks up her gun. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the blaster she was like sleeping with before.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd be remiss to not mention that she pulls up a fucking gun.
Yeah, I mean, she has gone all in. She's joined the Revolutionary Guard. She is gonna march on St. Petersburg and demand bread.
Well, should we leave this very not sci-fi scene behind for something that's a little bit more aesthetically like Star Wars?
So we're not coming back.
What?
We're not coming back to the scene.
But we will because it'll loom so large.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Saying goodbye, we return to the war room of the ISB central office, itself found in the Compnor Arcology, which is itself found on the level 5127 of the planet's Coruscant's federal district. I just want to get the full address in there.
Send in your hate mail to level 5127.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up both the Compnor and the Arcology because I think there's interesting things with there. One being Compnor is the Commission for the Preservation of the New Order, which is a fun little acronym. I don't know where that started. Is that one that's been around forever, Roseanne?
Well, it's the government agency responsible for the promotion of the Galactic Empire's New Order ideology. So it's basically like a propaganda wing of the Empire. Yeah, the Department of Truth, exactly.
They're doing agitprop in that building. But yeah, and I also found Arcology is a hypothetical mixed-use megastructure featuring high population density, with the goal of it being connected to self-sufficient and connected to nature, which is a very interesting idea. Of like, basically, this needs to exist by itself because there's no fucking leaves or there's nothing green on Coruscant.
Yeah,
it kind of has to be the self-sufficient thing. I know it's an interesting thing. Like they bother to even like look up Arcology to define this building. It's just the level of detail on the show. But yeah, inside, Lonnie is presenting a report by comparing the detention numbers to the frequency of surprise inspections, and that the ISB is under-allocating harbor patrol units. Basically, if I understand correctly, they're not arresting enough people for the amount of money they're spending deploying people, which will become very relevant in 7 minutes. Yeah, 7 minutes real time. Yeah, Partagaz tells him he has 3 different theories about why he's ultimately failed to keep pace with other sectors. And Lonnie tells him that's correct. And Partagaz says, I'm correct. Your approval is heartening.
That imperial bitchiness is so funny.
There is, even when they're on the wrong side of history, a bitchy bureaucrat is just such a lovely character trope.
Yeah.
And then Lonnie asks for guidance. Partagaz asks for a full audit of all hyperspace lanes, leading to Ord Mantell on his desk tomorrow. I look up Ord Mantell. Is this just a Glupshido?
It's a nice little Glupshido reference. It's a place that's shown up in a variety of stories and is one of the central locations in the Bad Batch. cartoon later on.
Is
So
there
it's a classic Mad Libs line.
Is there anything
it's like
about
a
that
love
planet that is
shithole.
interesting?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not necessarily. At least not off the top of my head right now.
Is it near Niamos? Do we know that?
I don't think so. I don't know. I believe it's a mid-rim planet, and I think
yeah, of
Niamos
course.
is further out.
Of course.
But I want to shout out Lonnie's ability to kind of swim right in the middle of everything without being so good that he gets a lot of attention, while also not being so bad that he's at
Well, he's not
risk
important.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do we care about Lonnie?
why would we care about Lonnie? Great question.
Bureaucratic systems are a pressure point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then so he asks for a full audit and to quote Wesley, "as you wish." Partagas moves on to Lieutenant Supervisor Blevin. He senses something eager in you this morning, and he asks if he was mistaken, and Blevin says no. He does have something to say. He wants to lodge a formal complaint against Dedra for violating the ISB Code of Conduct sector protocols, and she risks compromising Imperial safety, a violation of which she was previously reprimanded. An incredible shot of Supervisor Legret shocked.
Yeah.
And Dedra is caught off guard.
Yeah, we get this great shot of Legret staring at Blevin as he's like kind of side-eyeing Blevin as he's talking. And then once he mentions Dedra, Legret's eyes shoot over to Dedra, and you see like everyone else in the ISB room look at her, and you see her like kind of gasp. And her breath, like her chest starts like heaving as she's like realizing that she's under attack right now.
Yes.
And yeah, Blevin is so happy to get to he really thinks he's created the perfect trap for her.
Well, it's also such a funny dynamic. So when you see her earlier in this season, she's like one of the bad guys, let's be very clear, right? But she is good at her job. She's smarter than most of her coworkers, and so I find myself being lulled into this like boss girl feminism where I'm like, no, you should listen to her. And I'm like, oh no, actually no, be more misogynistic. Because if you listen to her, it's going to get harder for the people I'm rooting for. So it's I think it's just a very smart way to point out that like, as much as we just talked about this like personal universal story, that like, in institutions where the politics are bad and the person you're rooting for wants to do bad things, maybe the personal struggle is not worth taking up that fight. Like she is like objectively a victim of sexism, but like maybe you can leave the misogyny like exist in the bureaucracy of the empire because it's making it harder for the empire to function.
Well, and she is our kind of point of view character, and Blevin in this moment is like the little goody two-shoes dork who's like complaining to the teacher. They're like, oh, Dedra isn't playing by the rules.
Right. Well, because it like another thing this scene does so well and is show like how stilted the bureaucracy of fascism becomes, and the larger and like fascist empire grows, the more hamstrung by its own rigidity it becomes. And so like you need the Blevins because you need the rules, but it also makes it at a certain point, once you've stretched yourself too thin, you get easier to topple because you have become so rigid. But if you allow for more personal interpretation, then you sort of become less fascist, and you might just end that way.
I only just hit me like, but to quote Saoirse Ronan in Little Women, women. But like the entire episode has been about women.
Yeah.
It's been Mon, it's been Maarva, it's been Dedra. Like these have been the focus of those.
Clea and Vel.
Yes. I wonder if that's like them being like, we're about to have a lot of dude heavy episodes down the chute. We might want to balance that out a little bit while we got the shot. But I think it does sort of show how women are existing within different women are responding to this structural society. Which
I mean, look, women are half the population and are therefore essential. But as much as we can, and liberal feminism does this a lot, where they like look like, I hate the if we let women rule the world, there'd be no wars logic, because it's like, bitches, we all live in a post-Margaret Thatcher world.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton was famously a hawk. She was smarter and would not have upset global politics as much as Trump is, and I wish she had not lost in 2016 to him. But like, she was also going to she would have bombed a girls' school as well. We live in a post-Eva Peron world. Like, the butcher of Buchenwald was a woman. Like, fascism has always relied on women to be willing participants, active propagandists, and stalwarts to hold up that system as well.
But Dedra's the only woman in that room. She
is. But also, like, I mean, they end up listening to her at the end of the scene, but like, if they had listened to her even sooner, they would not have been able. They would have the rebels would have had to wait for another moment to inspire rebellion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Moving on. Partagaz asks Blevin if he thinks this is an appropriate venue to levy such a accusation. He does. It's a serious charge. And Partagaz asks Dedra, "Do you mind having your integrity ventilated in public?" Which I want to say for future use.
that imperial vocabulary, like. He really enjoys getting to be the referee in this wrestling match between the two of them.
I mean, what is Star Wars without a bunch of like heat vents? So it does make sense.
But I mean, and this is like very much like the Sith way of doing business, that like you pit your own team against each other, which is something we've talked about, like fascist ideologies do too. That like the way to make things stronger is he's basically throwing a knife into the middle of this room and telling Blevin and Dedra that one of them is going to have to kill the other with it.
Yeah.
Partagaz is the Joker?
Yeah.
and he also does this thing of like, that fascism also does, is it like it hides behind respectability politics. If you say the fancy words and like, you know, say it with an air of gentility, you're not throwing a knife telling them to fight to the death. You're asking her if she minds to have her integrity ventilated in front of everybody. Like, it is just that, like, fascist our tailoring is clean, so therefore so are we kind of logic.
We cut between a room on Ferrix where like the morning sun is glowing in through the windows. And we see it's still morning on Coruscant, but they are in a room with no windows. Mm-hmm. It does not matter where or when it is. They are.
So I have an issue with modern sci-fi, but Andor is exempt from this because, of course, this is what it looks like. It's a fascist empire. Mm-hmm. But like, so much of modern sci-fi envisions a future that is completely colorless. Mm-hmm. Like, everything is this like metallic whatever. And I'm like, I am not mad that I'm going to die before we see that future, if that's what all visions of the future look like. Like, what do you mean there's no pink or like yellow or purple or any of that kind of stuff? But to see how artfully the production designers use this stark white, borderline fluorescent
millennial apartment white.
It's millennial flipped house white. It is that like, haha, I can afford a cleaning person so that my 12 kids' sticky hands never leave fingerprints on my clean walls or my white couch. But also, like, there's no personality or sense of home I'm building because I'm going to flip this for a profit in a year anyway. So I only care about being able to sell it. It is, that white is just, I mean, it's literally Pantone's color of the year for 2026, but it's the most depressing, oppressive color in the world. But in Andor, it's used so, because when you cut to the scenes of like the senator at her like fancy party and like this like beautiful, the people who are exempt of this terror, in her case because she's not actively executing it, like, it's still just so white and depressing. And like, it looks like you've already died, like not like died and gone to heaven, but like died and are in this like white eternal purgatory.
We've gone the last 20 years of like Apple being viewed as like the vision of the future to now everything looks like that and is now depressing. Like, yes.
But when Apple started, they had pink MacBooks.
Yeah. Bring them back. Bring back the jewel cases.
Yeah, like the world used to have so much color.
I mean, that's there's like a very funny thing that happened where like Lucas created the Stormtroopers. Apple took inspiration from that white and black and made the iPod. And then J.J. Abrams is inspired by the iPods in order to then make like the new generation of First Order troopers. So like it's all an Ouroboros eating itself until we end up here.
And that white to depict a fascist regime and a fashioned hellscape, correct color. But like, for God's sake, people, paint your walls.
I mean, I think Trump would agree with you on that one.
Oh, not that wall. Tear that one down.
No, just like
That's like a fence.
covering it with gold. He's just an old-fashioned fascist, not a new fascist.
Yes. Yeah.
So I didn't mean the wall. I meant like his aesthetic is just all like Rococo, Baroque.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
I actually like it's gross and he's bad and he's evil, but I think one of the things like
this would the Obama White House look like this, like it does in the show.
Yeah.
It had a very like pristine, clean.
Yeah, I mean, look, we need a liberatory maximalism. I don't know what that looks like.
Bring back Global Coffee House.
Yes, but also I will be curious to see how much America's current fascist movement, if it will be able to survive a Trump death, because so much of it is so built on his cult of personality that like what happens when the gold toilet man goes.
I assume you have a Sunni Shia split of.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Do you go to the sons or do you go to the disciples?
I'm hoping for like more what we saw in Portugal, where like you get a leader and then the army goes, "We don't want you anymore," and he goes, "Okay, fine," and then fascism over.
Yeah, going back to fascism as it is in Star Wars.
Yes.
Do you mind having your integrity ventilated in public? And Dedra doesn't show her initial moment of hesitation. She's prepared. She goes, "No, sir. Supervisor Blevin obviously finds my conduct a more interesting subject than the advancement of integrated imperial security. He's put a lot into it. I'm curious to hear his thoughts." Which, like you said, just great cattiness, bitchiness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Partagaz asks if this is about Ferrex, which is under Blevin's oversight. There was an unusual piece of naval equipment recovered, and Dedra won his crime reports. We've seen all of this in show. Blevin reminds Partagaz that he determined her request was out of order and in violation of the chain of command. And Dedra cuts him off. "That's not accurate. You advised me to reinforce my suspicions with data and to be careful in my work going forward." And Blevin is just like sitting in the corner with his fingers like steepled and like who's, like you said, putting a knife in and who's gonna win.
Yeah, I mean, this really is, given that also like we now know these J.K. Rowling's politics were bad. It really is Draco versus Hermione.
Yeah.
Where he's like, "I got this, I got you. Like, I'm this little sniveling little snitch." And she's like, "Yeah, but I'm actually like half competent at my job, so you don't."
But while she's making her case, the camera often cuts all the way out to this wide shot where you see just how small she is and that she's the only woman in this room.
Yes.
To really just emphasize how alone she is in this fight, which I think makes us empathize with her. It's seeing how like she is very much like the closest thing to like an oppressed person in this room.
Which she is, which by the way, warning for all non-white cis het Christian males who side with fascism.
Our listeners.
Like, yeah. Like even your seat at the table you're not going to be an equal. Like, so just don't go there in the first place. I forget, I had a second point to that, but I just threw off with just the warning of like, even when they let you have a seat at the table, you're not going to be their equal.
The show never outright says it, but my vibe of Blevin is always that he's kind of, anytime he's like in his own office, he's saying like, "Can you believe they hired this diversity hire of Dedra?"
Although I do think it's probably worth pointing out that Star Wars, at least in terms of like human beings and skin color, does not seem to make any difference. Like people are not treated differently based on their skin color in the Star Wars universe, but we do see people. So like Blevin is played by a black actor, but his seat is at the table because he is a legitimate member of the Empire. Because the way that their racial lines in Star Wars fall across, it's more like different planets, but the planets can be somewhat multiracial, in as much as
we could even imagine
1960s,
74.
70s, early 70s casting was multiracial.
We can also even imagine like if the Empire survives 50 years or so, they might start then becoming race. Like if we've conquered everything and still things are not right, then we have to create lines within our own body, and that might be
for sure. Like when the bureaucracy, when there's not resources to extract from a different enemy, and you just have to sustain this really high quality of life you've provided for a small group of people, but you've expanded that small group too broadly, you have to start kicking people out of that group.
And that's why eventually fascism tears itself apart, because it cannot.
Yeah, look, that and this, and I honestly think the stilted bureaucracy, which makes it, if fascism is allowed to grow for long enough, it becomes really comparatively easy to build, because basically, like, even in this scene, we see something that we sort of saw with like the advent of American policing, which is like different districts not sharing information. And like even in the United States, there was a really good show about they couldn't catch the serial rapist because he kept on just like crossing these like two state lines. And so it was so slow to get the data, they couldn't put it together. And two female cops ended up being the ones who like talked and were like, oh, I've got cases that are similar. And they were like able to coordinate it. So it created like a national registry so that different law enforcement agents can share information. That's essentially what's happening here. Is she's like, look, we're looking at these crimes through such a regionally specific lens, but we're failing to compare them. And we forget that like the rebels don't care about our borders.
We don't know that yet.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
So sorry. But it is that stilted bureaucracy. Yeah. And I'll let you get there because he has a good line about his life's work or whatever.
Back to you advised me to reinforce my suspicions with data, and Blevin questions her use of the word careful. And Dedra, again, sort of confidence is shaken again. She goes, I'd be curious how many people at this table will think it's careful that you found a way to access our sector data without filing a request.
And her, like, jaw clenches.
Yes.
And she's, like, breathing so hard. Like, you really feel for her in this minute that, like, this is, like, a life or death battle.
It is hard to watch someone be the only member of a group in a room and be correct and no one listen to them and not root for them, even though the best thing for the rebels and for the revolution is if everyone laughed in her face and went, ha ha, you silly woman, you have nothing of value to offer, and did not compare the data.
Yep.
Like her,
There's something interesting, which is that when me and Rustine do our summaries beforehand, I pull up like the PDF of like the script of the episode to like figure out the exact quotes.
Oh, I didn't know you do that.
Is that bad?
No, I just use the Disney Plus captions.
Oh, no, yeah, but it's easier to just copy and paste it.
Sure.
But it made me notice that when Partagaz, he asked, is that true, Dedra? Not Lieutenant Miro.
Yeah.
And he refers to her as that. And there's a very interesting moment of like, he then goes on to a first name basis, which is a thing he never does.
Yeah.
And I think like you said like she's diversity hire, but I think he actually...
No, he does care.
Like, he
sees something in her. Is like the last scene that we saw between the two of them was him telling her that like, you're here for a reason, but you have to, do the work and prove yourself.
Yeah.
Like it's not fair, but you're going to have to do it. But I know you can.
Yes.
And so I think that's part of why he's okay letting this fight happen, because he's basically seeing like he's pushing her out of the nest basically and seeing if she can fly.
Yeah.
Just like...
No.
Just
no.
like...
No.
Maarva.
No, it's very different. It's fundamentally different. Do not sully that beautiful scene we just talked about with such a comparison.
It's not exactly, but it rhymes. But yes, Dedra admits that she used Imperial Emergency Act in the wake of Aldani to gather data across multiple sectors without official sanctions. But that is the wrong question. What is the right question? You can find out next week, because we're done.
Yes, that's the end of our 7 minutes here in Andor world. Kelsey, thank you for being here with us. Any final thoughts about this show that we didn't get to touch on in these 7 minutes?
Yeah, if you are listening to this with someone who's a Star Wars fan as not a Star Wars fan, tell them to pick podcasts that you both can enjoy.
No. Stick with this one. Stick with this one.
I mean, but listen to all these episodes. But seriously, like, this is a good one to try. And I also think that, like, if you've always been Star Wars curious and just not known where to start because it's such a massive franchise at this point, like, if you couldn't tell from our conversation in the beginning, you can know literally nothing about Star Wars and still get a lot out of this series. And even if, like, it's just legitimately great television.
Yeah, agreed. someone should make a podcast about it.
And then you should listen to every episode regardless of what you think about Star Wars.
And then go to your friends' phones and download it on theirs as well.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yeah.
So make sure to hit subscribe and give us 5 stars on all your friends' phones.
Do you want to?
Yeah, do you want to plug anything? Where can people
folks find you if you want to be found?
Yes, I am on Instagram at 24K Gold. If you, for some reason, love knitting, I post knitting content on TikTok at This Tangled Life with underscore between each word. And if you really are interested in science and the science behind sci-fi, I produce a podcast called Does It Fly? You could find us on YouTube. Sometime this year, we will be on SVOD, but I don't have a date yet. But we do have a really good episode on the Death Star and whether the Death Star is scientifically possible. We have a scientist take a conceit from our favorite properties and discuss how plausible the science is, why or why not, what would need to change in our world to make that there. He may or may not have run the math on how much a Death Star would actually cost. And then we have a pop culture expert who talks about whether the conceit works from a story perspective. And then they just talk of like whether or not it's cool or would want in the real world. I'm very proud of the podcast. I'm not in it, but I do produce it. So check out Does It Fly?
Well, no.
Yeah, we'll have a link to that in
Awesome.
the show
Thank
notes.
you. We also have a lightsaber episode.
Hell yeah.
I'll send you guys a link for
thing
our
that
Star Wars
we will
specific
never
one.
get to talk about on Andorks.
Yeah, fair.
Well, thank you, Kelsey, for being here. And thank you all for listening. Be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts to help us with the algorithm. You can follow Andorks on social media at AndorksPod. Send in your questions about the show to andorkspod@gmail.com. And we will see you next week for the final 7 minutes of Season 1, Episode 7, The Announcement. Later, dorks.
Bye, dorks.
Call your mothers.